Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MALDEF's Washington, D.C. Awards Gala.
MALDEF's 2022 Washington, D.C. Awards. Brought to you by our national gala sponsor, Verizon. Our legal chair, AARP. Our benefactors, Freed Frank. The National Education Association. Our patrons, Toyota. The Restaurant Law Center, National Restaurant Association. Our sponsors, Wilmer Hale. AFT. Futuro Media. And Latino Justice. Tonight, we honor Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard, Juan Cartagena, and Maria Hinojosa.
MALDEF is pleased to present this short video from our national gala sponsor, Verizon.
When the revolution come knocking at my door, I ain't fighting just for myself no more, no more. Got my brothers by my side, and on the wings of freedom we ride. When the revolution come knocking at my door.
At Verizon, we are committed to closing America's digital divide. We are investing to bring tech and connectivity to underserved schools across the country, making high-quality connectivity more affordable for low-income families, and expanding access to rural communities so more people have the affordable, high-quality internet they deserve. It's all part of our $3 billion commitment to help those who need it most and close the digital divide. Because we believe no one should be left behind.
A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for Emilio Gonzalez.
It's wonderful to be with you tonight in person. I want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors. Your support matters more than ever. I also want to take a moment to congratulate our honorees this evening. I have to say I read all your bios and quickly realized I am the low point of the evening, so I'll be brief. But your work for the betterment of the Latino community is outstanding. And your talents that you have applied to your career and your journey are inspiring. So thank you. And finally, I want to say a word about this great organization that I love so much. Occasionally, as a board member, you get to take a closer look at the workings of an organization. And which every year that I've served, my respect and my admiration for what they do grows. It's really hard work, but they're defensive dreamers of voting rights, access to the classroom, of all the things we need to have equal rights as Latinos and Latinas. They do that every day. They do it with integrity, passion, and just phenomenal focus. And I'm honored to serve, and I thank them for this. I hope you all enjoy your evening. Thank you. Congratulations.
Damas y caballeros, please join me in welcoming attorney and NBC Latino contributor and your host for this evening, Raul Reyes.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the MALDEF 2022 Washington, D.C. Awards Gala. I am so honored to be your host this evening on behalf of the MALDEF Board of Directors and MALDEF President and General Counsel Thomas Saenz. This evening has a lot of resonance for me. I just want to mention two things. Number one is I know everyone is busy, so gracias for everyone just for coming out so we can be together and see everyone. You know, in this room we are family, so it's nice to see so many friends and colleagues. And also, you know, when I was growing up, I didn't really know any Latino attorneys. That wasn't really something that figured into my world. But I do remember when I was a little kid and my dad used to read the paper to me and we were learning about the news, reading about the MALDEF attorneys who way back then in the 70s were fighting for civil rights and to help advance the community. So it means a lot for me to be a part of an evening like this with MALDEF. All right. And I want to remind everyone, you know, many of us know some of the honorees, and come on, we're all family here, so this is an interactive evening. I want to hear from all you too. Everyone. All right. Now, we have, MALDEF has a tremendous program tonight that begins with three amazing honorees, each of whom stands united around a shared mission, a mission of promoting a greater America for all of us, especially for our large and growing Latino communities. I wanted to begin by sharing some highlights from MALDEF's history for those of you who may not be familiar. MALDEF opened its doors in 1968 in San Antonio, Texas, following efforts by Latino lawyers and community activists to create a legal organization to promote the civil rights of Latinos living in the United States. Today, MALDEF is known as the Latino legal voice for civil rights in America. All right. For 54 years, MALDEF has worked in the courts, in the halls of Congress, and in state and local legislatures to create new laws and policies with wide-ranging impact for the Latino community and for our nation as a whole. MALDEF works to secure the right to a meaningful vote, to equal educational opportunity, to a non-discriminatory workplace, and for fairness and justice in every endeavor across the country. This includes, and this is, by the way, 2022 is the 40th anniversary of this decision. This includes MALDEF's landmark 1982 Supreme Court victory in Plyler versus Doe. Plyler versus Doe, which it guarantees the right to a free kindergarten through 12th grade public education for all children regardless of immigration status. That victory it's the very foundation for the ongoing efforts on behalf of MALDEF to provide citizenship, not just to dreamers, but to millions of others. So tonight, MALDEF honors three individuals who have made immeasurable contributions and are united by a commitment to the principles of equality and fairness for all. I have the pleasure of introducing MALDEF's first esteemed honoree this evening, Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard, the recipient of MALDEF's Lifetime Achievement Award, Excellence in Government Service Award. In 1992, Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard became the first Mexican-American woman elected to Congress. She has distinguished herself throughout her career, throughout her 30-year congressional career, as a dedicated advocate for the dignity and well-being of all Americans. The Congresswoman is the first Latina to serve on the Appropriations Committee in the House of Representatives, as well as the first Latina to serve as one of the 12 cardinals or chairs of a House Appropriations Subcommittee. She is the first woman to chair the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the first woman to chair the California Democratic Congressional Delegation. As chairwoman of the House Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee, the Congresswoman continues to fight to ensure that we treat immigrants humanely with dignity and respect. And as we all know, that's something we cannot take for granted. The Congresswoman has pursued these efforts by establishing the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman and an ICE body-worn camera initiative to help ensure federal agency accountability for the migrants in DHS custody. She has prioritized funding for alternatives to detention programming and casework as a more humane and cost-effective, successful alternative for incarceration. She is a strong advocate as well for fair and just immigration reform, which recognizes the critical contributions that immigrants make to our nation. Congresswoman Roybal Allard is an original co-author, by the way, of the DREAM Act, which would allow certain U.S.-raised immigrant youth to earn lawful permanent residence and eventual American citizenship. The House passed the newest version of this bill, H.R. 6, the Dream and Promise Act, in 2021, and it now awaits consideration in the Senate. So now let's take a look at the video profile MALDEF has created for the Congresswoman.
I think my mom, the best way to describe her is just she's very classy. Kind of reminds me of Jackie Onassis. She's tough. And if you know her and if you've been with her behind closed doors, you know that. But she always has kind of handled things in a very calm, confident, respectful manner, even when there are issues that maybe her colleagues don't necessarily agree with. She always has been able to find common ground and push forward. And I know that my mom has struggled over the years with not being around a lot, and I just want her to know that we all, as a family, support, what she's done in the last 36 years. And we understand that she had to be away to accomplish the things that she's accomplished and to do right by her community. So I just want to let her know that I love her and that I appreciate everything she's done for her country and for the family.
Congresswoman Roybal Allard has a sincere commitment to public service and improving the lives of her constituents in the most Hispanic district in the nation without seeking the limelight, an example set by her father, the late Congressman Edward Roybal. For much of her tenure, she has represented a district that has some of the poorest health care coverage in the country. She has been a selfless leader fighting for vulnerable and underserved communities in her district.
Well, we don't have enough time to talk about all of Lucille's accomplishments, and I'm not overstating things. I think she has more firsts in breaking the glass ceiling for Latinas than the Lakers have NBA titles. People just don't realize what a pioneer she is. Nor do most people know what it means for Los Angeles to have Lucille as a cardinal appropriator, the first Latina cardinal appropriator in the history of the House. When I think about her accomplishments, when she leaves office here in LA, we will no longer have her clout to bring federal funding to our region. From the revitalization of the LA River to the Gold Line East Side extension to our downtown courthouse, to funding vocational programs, workforce development, arts education, after-school programs, and the list goes on and on. The average Angelino has really no clue what they owe Chairwoman Lucille Roybal Allard.
From the community health perspective, I would point to the Congresswoman's biggest achievement as being the over 1.7 million patients, the majority of whom live below the federal poverty level, the majority of whom are either on public programs or uninsured, all of whom have access to a medical home in Los Angeles County. And that's not just in LA County, that's across California, and nationwide, the numbers are even greater as far as folks that can appreciate and thank the Congresswoman for protecting them and providing them access to quality care.
There's so many things she's achieved. It's hard to name just one thing. I would say definitely her position on immigration and things that she's tried to push forward as a member of the Appropriations Committee, the chair of the subcommittee. That I was hoping would get done before she retired. I know she's been working on that for the last, say, 20 years. So hopefully it gets passed this year while she's still in office. If not, hopefully somebody else takes on this legislation and makes it a reality at some point.
Even when it was difficult, almost impossible for women to be in power, she showed everyone that it was possible. So now that every girl, every high school student, the little girl in elementary school, they all know that it doesn't matter how we look, it doesn't matter where we come from, what economic status you're in, you can still make it. And she's a proof of that. So hopefully people will remember that that's being a woman, it's not a barrier for you to be successful in this country.
I think Lucille's legacy will be selflessness in serving the greater good. She never lost her North Star. People don't realize it, but she's 21 out of 435 members in seniority in the House. And that's no joke. Her legacy is all the good she has done with that seniority.
For 30 years, Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard has been a force for progress in the halls of the United States Capitol, proudly following in the footsteps of her legendary father and making her own mark on the Congress. The first Mexican-American woman ever elected to the Congress, she continues to inspire so many through her trailblazing public service. The godmother of the DREAM Act, who's been an unyielding champion for immigrant communities in Southern California and across the nation. Having made history as the first woman to lead the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, she has led the charge to strengthen maternity care for Latina moms. And as chair of the Homeland Security Appropriations Committee, she has used her gavel to defend the rights of asylum seekers and newcomers to our country. As Lucille prepares for her next chapter, her many friends in Congress offer our love, our profound gratitude, and we all salute her extraordinary leadership.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Honorable Lucille Roybal Allard.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I have to admit, I'm a little bit emotional after seeing that wonderful tribute from MALDEF. Thank you so much for that very beautiful tribute. It is truly humbling to receive this award from an organization which for over 50 years has accomplished so much in its fight to ensure fairness and justice for our Latino community. Under the leadership of Thomas Saenz, this has certainly been true. Beginning with his early days as MALDEF's lead counsel and successful challenges to California's anti-immigrant Proposition 187 and California's 2001 redistricting initiative. And later, during his 13 years serving as president and general counsel and arguing before the Supreme Court, representing those defending Obama administration deferred action initiatives. Tom and his talented and committed staff have successfully built on the foundation of predecessors, and they have strengthened MALDEF's legacy as the highly respected national organization that it is today. Regrettably, the hard-fought victories won by MALDEF and other Latino leaders and allies are vulnerable to current efforts to undermine those successes and return us to the injustices and discrimination of the past. As we meet the challenges of today, we must also meet the challenge of protecting our victories of the past. Under the proven talented leadership of Tom and his staff, there is no stronger civil rights organization to meet the challenges facing our Latino communities than MALDEF. Thank you all for your support of this incredible organization. I leave Congress knowing that with MALDEF's dedicated board of directors and individuals like you who are here tonight, MALDEF will remain at the forefront of our battles with more victories to come. Again, my sincere thanks to MALDEF and his incredible staff and board of directors for tonight's recognition. There are no words to fully express how humbling and truly meaningful it is to be recognized by this outstanding premier civil rights organization of the Latino community. Thank you.
Mil gracias, Congresswoman, for your service to this nation over the years. And now I'd like to bring to the stage MALDEF's Washington, D.C. Regional Counsel, Andrea Santino.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I first congratulate each of the amazing honorees. Your legacies are an inspiration not only to me, but to millions of others who are fighting in their own ways for civil rights and social justice. After more than 2 years, we continue to witness the multitude of ways that the ongoing pandemic has affected our lives. But the pandemic isn't the only thing ailing our country. We've witnessed the ways our democracy is under attack, and this includes the January 6th insurrection, which showed just how real the threats we face are. In these challenging times, MALDEF staff navigated the challenges of the pandemic for their own families, while also dedicating themselves every day to the continued fight for civil rights. In the area of voting rights, MALDEF has worked hard, along with our civil rights partners, to advance the bipartisan John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and to restore the Voting Rights Act to its full protections. This bill is critical. We all know how determined states and localities can be to deny the Latino community access to the ballot and fair representation. And voting rights was such an important issue that the Senate contemplated a historic rule change to abolish the filibuster in order to pass this bill. And so while it failed this Congress, we are committed to ensuring that it is among the top legislative priorities for the next Congress. There is simply no time to waste. The DC office also continues to push the White House to increase the number of Latino and Latina judicial nominees. And we celebrate our successes with the nomination of Brad Garcia to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Once confirmed, or when confirmed, he would be the first Latino sitting on that court. But this is a nomination that would not have been made but for the advocacy of MALDEF and our continued push for a Latino or Latina to that court. Our office also continues to be active fighting in the courts. And this year we settled an important lawsuit for marginalized Latinos in our country on behalf of 2 transgender detainees who were detained in Georgia and were held in solitary confinement. We settled that case for over $500,000 for both of our clients together. And as we move into the midterm elections, MALDEF continues our critical role of monitoring and advocating for voters exercising their right to vote. As you all know, we are all living through attacks from many different directions against our rights and our democracy. And the Latino vote is growing, and we must ensure that each and every voter is able to cast their ballot when so many important issues are at stake. Amidst the difficulties we all face during this global crisis, I am deeply honored to be leading our DC office in these critical efforts and to work with such a dedicated, passionate, and talented team. Nicholas Young-Smith, Rosa Saavedra Benacor, and Carolina Rivera Nelson. And of course, none of this work is possible without the generous support of everyone here tonight and many others. The challenges facing our community are ever increasing, but I assure you that MALDEF, and specifically the DC office, is ready to meet this moment. I hope that we can count on your continued generosity. Together we can advance civil rights for all Latinos. Thank you.
And now it is with great pleasure that I introduce MALDEF's second honoree this evening, Juan Cartagena, civil rights attorney and lecturer at Rutgers University, and recipient of MALDEF's Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Legal Service Award. Juan Cartagena is one of the nation's leading voices on equality and non-discrimination, who has successfully used the law to effectuate systemic change for the benefit of marginalized communities. A public speaker, as a litigator, an educator, Mr. Cartagena has worked over the course of his career litigating in such varied areas as housing, education, voting rights, and employee discrimination. For over a decade, Mr. Cartagena served as the president and general counsel of Latino Justice, MALDEF, a national civil rights public interest law office that represents Latinas and Latinos throughout the country and works to increase their entry into the legal profession. Mr. Cartagena is a graduate of Dartmouth College. Way up there, okay. Represent. Mr. Cartagena is a graduate of Dartmouth College and Columbia University School of Law, and currently lectures on constitutional and civil rights law at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, Rutgers Law School in Newark, the Inter-American University School of Law in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and he leads a team of public policy students in the Grove Fellowship program at Hunter College, CUNY. He is also a former municipal court judge in Hoboken, New Jersey. Mr. Cartagena has written numerous articles on constitutional, human, and civil rights laws. His current research interests include the effects of mass imprisonment on Latino communities. Juan Cartagena litigates, advocates, and researches how Latinos are uniquely harmed by racial profiling, excessive policing, prison gerrymandering, disenfranchisement, outdated drug policies, and employment discrimination against people with criminal histories. So he currently serves on the Drug Policy Alliance Action Board and the advisory board to the Latino Policy and Politics Institute at the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. Let's take a look at the video MALDEF produced to pay tribute to Juan Cartagena's wonderful work.
I think that what has driven Juan to be who he is a sense of purpose. Juan is an Ivy League graduate of Columbia Law School and could have easily taken his Ivy League law degree and gone corporate, gone to a big bulge law firm, but he made it his choice that he wanted to use the power of the law to empower Latinos. And I believe that comes from not only his family upbringing as a proud Boricua, proud Puerto Riqueño, but also someone that saw the challenges that we as Latinos and we as people of color face when it comes to the criminal justice system, to the lack of Latino representation in the law, the lack of Latino lawyers, and the significant lack of Latino judges. And so he made it his passion to take that Ivy League law leadership and use it for the purpose of empowering Latinos. And that's why I believe that litigated civil rights has been his life's work. And that's what makes me so proud of who he is and what he has done through his lifetime.
Juan has accomplished many things throughout his career that I can't possibly start to name here. But the biggest accomplishment of Juan that touched me was really him bringing together criminal justice reform advocates from across the country who did the work through a Latino lens. Juan's legacy will be the number of Latino lawyers who follow after him. I think he's set such a wonderful precedent for Latino lawyers, Latino activists, advocates who want to do criminal justice reform. I think we've all learned so much from him. He's been a great role model, whether he wanted to or not, and has shown us how to lead with both passion and compassion and not forgetting your roots. So I think his legacy will be really touching all of the Latino lawyers who come after him.
I think what drives Juan to do what he does is pride in his gente. And not just the Puerto Ricanos, but the entire hemisphere of Latinx people. To Juan, we're all his compas and his comadres. And we are prevented from achieving what we are capable of achieving because of centuries of discrimination and othering. And what Juan takes pride in, our richness, our different heritage, our languages, our music, our dance, our skin tones, our hair, are the very things that they use to discriminate against us, to other us. And Juan, I think, is determined to use whatever he can, his influence, his contact, his education, his law career, to remove and alleviate those obstacles.
I'm very, very proud of all the work he has done, but understanding that at one point we had gone on strike and he was a young lawyer at the time, and that he ended up years later becoming the president and general counsel of what is now called Latino Justice, the Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund. I am most proud that he never shied away from his commitment to the issue of the political status of Puerto Rico, and he was instrumental in the board of directors of MALDEF developing a declaration in support of sovereignty for Puerto Rico. I am most proud of this accomplishment on behalf of Juan.
Juan has so many legacies that he has built. First, the number of lawyers that are practicing law today because of Juan's leadership in the education initiatives through Latino justice, his relationship with Rutgers University as an adjunct professor, him being even a municipal court judge in New Jersey, so that he can be a part of the solution. And you look at so many leaders that he has touched over so many years. It's a legacy of success. It's a legacy of empowerment. And I'm proud that Juan was always a collaborative leader. His collaboration with Tom Symes and MALDEF from the very day that he became president and general counsel for Latino Justice has led to a unified effort to make sure that our litigated advocacy, our litigated civil rights for Latinos was done in a unified, collaborative way. And I'm very proud of the fact that he is a collaborative leader. He's a caring leader. He's a passionate leader, and one that we would all be proud to be having on our side or representing us if we ever have to go and fight for our civil rights in the court of law. And I thank MALDEF and thank Tom Sines and the leadership for recognizing Juan Cartagena for the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you so much. Primero, antes que nada, muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes, a la gente que hicieron todo esto posible, a la gente que prepararon nuestra comida, que la cosecharon, que lo están sirviendo, a la gente que dan ánimo a nosotros porque son nuestros antecedentes, the people up there who guide us and ground us. So thank you so much. Gracias, MALDEF. Incredible honor to be with you tonight. Thank you for allowing me to share this stage with the honorees. For Congresswoman Roybal Allard, amazing, the pioneering woman that you have been in California. So thank you so much. I'm very proud to be on the same stage with you. To Maria Hinojosa, who I've been following for so many years, so proud to be as well. Thank you so much. For those of you who are not listening to In the Thick, you don't listen to Maria and to Julio Varela, you're missing out. You gotta listen. You gotta support In the Thick. Plus all of Futuro Media because they're blowing up. Gracias to my colegas who are here from Latino Justice, both present and former, Jose and Cesar, and former Kira, and others who might be in the audience, and interns. And gracias to my colegas from the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda. All of you, I'm very proud to share this time with you. I'm going to be very quick, but here's what I want to tell you, that yo estoy en una vida semi-retirada. I'm in a semi-retirement mode of my life, which means que me levanto cuando me da la gana. To paraphrase a Bad Bunny album title. That's my last Bad Bunny reference tonight, by the way. That said, I came the last time I've been to DC, literally to be here and took a train here was in 2019. So imagínate, that's been a long time ago. So today I got here early and I was turista. I was like the tourist in DC. So I never had a chance to go, and I went finally to the African American Museum, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And my tears were welling up every time I went to every exhibit. It was very hard to go through those exhibits and not feel the incredible emotions that anyone has to feel when you realize how we have treated blackness in this country. For me, it was an easy thing for me to feel because I grew up in urban America. I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in Jersey City, which is right next door to New York City. I grew up in a place and time in which being supportive of black liberation was just natural. Even though I grew up in a Puerto Rican household, raised by my mother, Juana Bautista Aponte Alvarado. And she raised me. My father's name is Juan Cartagena Ortiz. He was not part of my upbringing, but he was definitely a part of my life and still is a part of my life. But it was my mother, Juana, who made sure I grew up in the straight and narrow and realized that what I wanted to do was to serve people, to serve our gente, and to serve us in a way that will make her proud. I'm always trying to make her proud. To know urban America is to know exploitation, to know marginalization, to know discrimination, to know everything that you need to know about how this country treats people who work with their hands and those who inherit property. And that distinction has always been with me from the moment I can remember. Years later, I get to study in Mexico. I studied in Puebla, in la Universidad de Puebla. But I also got to visit so many different parts of Mexico as part of an incredible geography course that I took on a bus. You guys laugh, but es verdad. I took a real course, a college course, and got credits to be on the bus to go to Oaxaca, to go to Mérida, to go to Yucatan, to go to Palenque, to go to Chichen Itza, to go to Veracruz, where I danced to El Gran Combo live. Because Veracruz is super caribeño. Years after that, I got enamored with the hope of civil rights and human rights because I got an internship with the Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund. And it became my calling. I always knew I was going to be an attorney since the moment I was a child. But I didn't know I was going to be a civil rights attorney until I got involved with Puerto Rican Legal. And it starts at Puerto Rican Legal. And the Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund, it organized, it's going to go into its 50th anniversary very soon, this year. And it organizes chartering documents based on the very chartering documents of the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That was the synergy between the lawyers in New York and the lawyers in San Antonio. That the lawyers in New York said, I want to create a legal defense fund for Puerto Ricans, and there's only one other in the whole country that has done it before for other Latinas y Latinos, and that was MALDEF. Years later, I found out that the chartering documents of Puerto Rican Legal became the chartering documents of Lambda Legal Defense Fund, the only legal defense fund that protects the rights of gay, bisexual, LGBTQ communities. I learned that they literally took our chartering documents in New York, and every time it said Puerto Rican, they scratched it out and put homosexual. And that's how they started. So what MALDEF has started in '68 in San Antonio continuously bred and multiplied our reach in so many ways. In law school, I learned things that were not taught in law school, but I didn't learn them until much later when I became a lawyer or a law student at Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund. I didn't have the incredible professors that existed post. I didn't have a professor like Michael Olivas, right? Que en paz descanse, who was on the board of MALDEF, who was an amazing icon in the teaching of law to Latinas y Latinos. But now I get the chance to teach the cases that I didn't learn about when I was in law school. And I get to do that in multiple venues. Years later, I co-counseled with MALDEF when I was an attorney at Puerto Rican Legal, and we co-counseled cases in Chicago for voting rights and to stop racial gerrymandering. And years after that, I get to meet and work with this incredible gentleman on my right, Tom Saenz. I hope you all who are on the board of MALDEF and support MALDEF every year recognize the jewel that you have in Tom. Tom is one of the most amazing analytical minds that I've ever met in my career. And to him, I owe a lot of credit because he's been able to make sure that we all collectively talk about the larger issues that face us as communities. So now I'm here, many years later. You know, we need a lot more attorneys in the public interest. We need a lot more than just Latino justice and MALDEF, or since I'm here today, between MALDEF and Latino justice. The point of them I'm trying to say is that we can multiply our forces by 10 times and it still not be enough to reach the needs of Latinos and Latinas in this country. We are the largest group in this country, but we are also facing the incredible challenges that we do in this country because of what we look like, how we speak our English, how we speak our Spanish, the fact that we're Black, indigenous, and the fact that we've come from families that have respected and have been able to give us the values of hard work, and family values. It is to them that I also dedicate this award to. So you need to support organizations like MALDEF. You need to support their vital role in using law as a tool. Many years later, I recognize that law is not the best tool all the time. Sometimes you win a lawsuit, but you don't win it unless you really stick around to make sure it gets fully won. And sometimes you just don't win because the odds are stacked against us with judges who think differently about the Constitution. Pero coño, if I don't believe that those of us who are here believe in the power of hope. And in places like MALDEF, when you support organizations like this, you breeding hope. Gracias.
All right, thank you, Juan, for a beautiful speech and your dedication to empowering the Latino community. So I'm kind of excited about this next award. I don't know about you guys. Tonight's final award goes to Maria Hinojosa. Now, I'm just going to go a little bit off script here for a second, just to say, I mean, I can remember long before I ever knew Maria Hinojosa when I used to see her on TV, and she was the only, she was really like the only Mexican-American or Mexican person, Latina, I ever saw on TV. So I can remember like when, I think the same as for many of us in this room, we followed her because we saw ourselves in her. And she was succeeding professionally, and you had that feeling like, that's us, you know? And I told her tonight, and I meant it, I said, you know, she has officially crossed over from Latino famous to full-on famous. She is famous. And I'm super proud of her. So, anyway, as a reporter who was the first Latina in many newsrooms, Maria Hinojosa, dreamt of a space where she could create an independent multimedia journalism that explored and gave the critical voice to the diverse American experience. She made that dream a reality in 2010 when she created Futuro Media, an independent, nonprofit newsroom based in Harlem with the mission to create multimedia content from a person of color perspective. Wow, radical concept, right? So the Futuro Media is doing this in the service of empowering people to navigate the complexities of an increasingly diverse and connected world. As the anchor of an executive producer of the Peabody Award-winning show Latino USA, distributed by PRX now, as well as the co-host of In the Thick, the Futuro Media's award-winning political podcast, which if you haven't, I really tell you, you could check it out. It's like the Latino Meet the Press. Maria Hinojosa has informed millions about the changing cultural and political landscape in America and abroad. Hinojosa's nearly 30-year career as an award-winning journalist includes reporting for PBS, CBS, WNBC, NPR, and anchoring the Emmy Award-winning talk show from WGBH, Maria Hinojosa One-on-One. She is the author of two, actually I think it's 3 or 4 maybe, books now. She's author of 4 books and has won dozens of awards, including 4 Emmys. She has been honored with her own day in October by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, and she's been recognized by people in Espanol as one of the most powerful Latina women. As a reporter for NPR, Maria Hinojosa was among the first to report on youth violence in urban communities on a national scale. And now at Futuro Media, Hinojosa continues to bring attention to experiences and points of view that are often overlooked or underrepresented in mainstream media, all while mentoring the next generation of diverse journalists so that they can delve into authentic and nuanced stories. Most recently, maybe you heard, Maria's 7-part podcast series, Suave, won journalism's highest honor, the Pulitzer Prize for audio reporting in 2022. I mean, not too many people can say that. Okay, so a salute. Now let's enjoy the video MALDEF created as a tribute to Maria Hinojosa.
Wow, where to start to list all of Maria's accomplishments? There's just so many. I think you just need to look at her bio to see her professional accomplishments, her documentaries, her radio work, her podcasts, her books, her academic posts in some of the most prestigious universities. But I think her most important accomplishment is creating her own company, becoming her own boss, allowing her the freedom to do the work that you would literally have to fight for on mainstream media. And in doing so, she has become such a role model for young journalists and just professionals who see her and know that it can be done, que sí se puede. She's led the way and opened doors and fed people's imaginations into everything that's possible.
I think what drives Maria is high quality journalism and storytelling. I have seen her in so many situations, but the place where she thrives is when she's reporting, when she's in the field, when she's engaging with her interviewees and people, her subjects, her sources. I think Maria's always wanted to change the narrative in media, especially amplifying Latino and Latina representation, bringing the voice of the community into places where they have been ignored and overlooked. And she's achieved that. She's created her own lane and has proven that our voices matter. And that's what drives her each and every day.
I think Maria Hinojosa is one of the most outstanding women I have ever met. To give her a Lifetime Achievement Award is a little premature because Maria has not yet even begun her incredible journey to bring us the stories that we would never know that she is there in every corner, in every aspect of the Latino community. We are so grateful to Maria Hinojosa for taking us with her on her journey so that we can see these many, many pockets of our history of what is going on right now in the Latino community. Maria Hinojosa is awesome. I am so happy to be her friend, and I want to thank MALDEF for recognizing her, giving her the tributes that she deserves. Sí se puede with Maria Hinojosa.
I am most proud of Maria creating Futuro Media. In a moment of being shut out, and she's very public about this, being shut out by other media outlets, she took that moment of being ignored and created something beautiful that has allowed so many young journalists and voices to thrive outside of what I think is more traditional mainstream media. And as we talk about changing the face of media, we need to support places like Futuro Media that have created new opportunities for people to look for alternatives so they don't have to always go to mainstream outlets. So what Maria has done is change the game.
You know, I've been listening to Maria for years, and she's been there where she needed to be. Whenever there's a big interview or elections in Latin America or a protest in Washington, she's always been there. But from all her reports, I still remember when she went to Mississippi, and she talked to a boy whose father had been deported. And then this little boy, he said, se me rompió el corazón cuando deportaron a mi papá. And then Maria, she allowed the silence to speak. Just imagine silence on the radio. And it was incredibly compelling, and it worked. And we knew what that little boy was feeling. That's what she does. That's the magic that she does. So if politicians and academics want to understand who we are, listen to Latino USA. But more importantly, listen to Maria Hinojosa.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome and congratulations to Maria Hinojosa.
Why you all make me cry like that? Oh my God, muchas gracias. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you, fam. I see you. Wow, yeah, like I had it all together. And then you showed that video. Wow. Woo. First of all, to Congresswoman Roybal Allard, thank you so much for everything and for being such an example for all of us. Thank you. To my brother, Juan, bro, you and I did not talk about our speeches before, but you're gonna see that there's a commonality, and that's why you are my brother, and I love you, Juan. And to everybody at MALDEF, the board, and Tomas, where are you, Tomas? Muchas gracias, mi amor. Thank you for everything. You know, Tomas is so high energy, sometimes I just have to tell him to calm down. I'm like, Juan, cálmate, okay? Tomas, cálmate. We love you, Tomas. We love you. I love that everybody's enjoying the rub. So, you know, as I was thinking about this speech, I grew up with MALDEF. For me, MALDEF, as a young journalist, what would we be putting on the air on the very beginnings of Latino USA had it not been for MALDEF, right? We are going into our 30th year at Latino USA. And for me, MALDEF was my source. They were my source, and then they were actually my hope, right? You were my guiding light in many ways. You didn't know this because I'm a journalist and I'm, you know, not supposed to be fawning all over our sources like this, but you really were. You were my guiding light in so many ways. And I feel like today's kind of special because today, all right, well, the truth is, you know, I'm a Mexican immigrant, so I have 16 jobs. I can't say no to work. So today wore my professor hat, and I taught in person at Barnard, my alma mater, and then I got on a plane and then taught virtually. I know, it was crazy. But the afternoon class actually had the highest number of all of my classes of students who are going to become lawyers. And it was the highest number of students that I've ever had in one class from San Antonio. I know. So I'm a little bit like there's something, and you know, I'm very spiritual, so I definitely believe that there's something there. There's something happening. Now, as Mexicanos, as Mexican Americans, we have a very particular responsibility, right? And MALDEF has led the way by challenging all the way up to the Supreme Court, but I'm talking about something that is a little bit different. So I came to life during another phase, an earlier phase of the Black Lives Matter movement in the 1960s. I came to be during a time of anti-war activism, radical feminism. Mi mamá, como la tuya, Juan, I mean, that didn't sound, you know, my mom like yours, knew that Cesar Chavez was nuestra gente, right? She knew that. She knew that Dolores Huerta, which is why, of course, that totally made me tear up. Well, and Jorge, oh my God. But my mom knew that, right? And she knew that Gloria Steinem was also on our side. Now, we knew that we were not black, but we lived on the south side of Chicago in a black community. And we understood, my mother very clearly understood that deep relationship. So we, in this moment of time, we Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, Latine, let's come up with all the possibilities, okay? We have to uplift this, right? Because what we understand now is that our young people, and you know the median age of Latinos is 11, right? So they have grown up in another era of the Black Lives Matter movement, right? They have parents too who are understanding. In este momento, we stand on the side of Black lives and brown lives mattering. That is a historic moment that we all, like my mom and like Juan's mom, we have our moms teaching our kids this and uplifting our Afro-Latinidad and the complexity of indigeneity. We were talking about this reality, pues sí, es verdad. We are increasingly indigenous Latinos and Latinas in the United States. And for me, one of my, and I don't talk about an agenda as a journalist except for really wanting making people feel things, but I actually do talk about making a very clear relationship between the Black Lives Matter movement and the pro-immigrant rights movement in the United States. Until these two things come together, it's not going to be pretty because, as Juan knows, right, and we all know, you stop mass incarceration, but you increase mass immigrant detention. Simple. That's how the money keeps being made. We are the second largest voting cohort in the United States. Our democracy is in peril, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be here. I love you, Janet. Thank you for all you do with Unidos. We love you, Janet. Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here. It means a lot to me. So, you know, people say to me, ay, Maria, you're just so Mexican immigrant-y. You're just so immigrant-y. You just care about it because of the immigrants. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually obsessed not with the issue of immigrants and refugees. I'm obsessed with the capacity of this country to be inhuman towards people whose only difference was that we weren't born in this country. That's what I'm obsessed with. So, yeah, it's a little weird to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. I mean, I'm only 30. But I will tell you this, I am doubling down. Getting older, and if you follow me on Insta, and if you don't, then you should. But also, I have books for all of you as you walk out, so make sure we give you books, okay? But listen, getting older for me means me vale madres lo que piensan, ¿entiendes? Me vale. And it means that I actually, and the Pulitzer was such a beautiful, because I didn't even know that we had submitted for the Pulitzer, but it means that I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I don't have to prove anything to anyone in the world of journalism in the United States today. And now, I have my own investigative unit within Futuro Media. So I'm the only Latina that is running a national investigative unit looking at Latinos and Latinas and the issue of immigration in the United States. So get ready. And get ready, United States and DHS and all y'all, but also get ready, Mexico, because I never thought that I would be having to take on my country of birth on the issue of immigration, pero no me voy a callar. No me voy a callar. As they say, you know, in that movie, I'm the captain now. I'm 60 Minutes now. I'm 60 Minutes now. Thank you to my entire team, Julio, Pablo, Hector, Grace, Jurema, Raúl, Keren, my brother, el loquito, Raúl Hinojosa Ojeda, not to be confused with my son, Raúl Ariel Jesús de Todos los Santos Pérez Hinojosa, or my daughter, María Jurema Guadalupe de los Indios Pérez Hinojosa. You know, I am a very proud Latina. I'm a very proud Mexicana, super, but I'm a super proud Latina too. And I learned that from mis compañeros and compañeras salvadoreños y salvadoreñas, argentinos, de Chile, de Cuba, y después de toda Latinoamérica, y después de la República Dominicana, where my beautiful husband, Germán Pérez, is from, so my kids are Dominimex. And as Raúl Reyes did a beautiful piece, if you haven't read it, and he asked me this question, and I'm going to end with it, Raúl, because it was really, you know, he said, so Maria, lawyer to journalist, what's your greatest accomplishment? And I'm sure he was expecting me to say, well, my Pulitzer, my Peabody, my 4 Emmys. Am I humble bragging? Okay. But I didn't say that. I said my greatest accomplishment is keeping my family together. Keeping them together. And you know, Lucille, I know you know this, and Janet, you too, all of us mujeres que estamos aquí, this is not easy, right? And it falls really hard on our family. So when we are able to keep them together and say, we do this with love for you, mi hijo y mi hija, and my husband, that's what this is all about. It's about the family. It is about that. And so somos comunidad, and I'm so honored to receive this Lifetime Achievement Award. And I'll be back in 60 years again to receive the second one. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. Wow. That felt like the Oscars. Thank you for your efforts in representing all of us, in representing America, and especially our Mexican-American, our Latino community in the best way possible, and making sure our stories are always told and always heard. So before we wrap up, I would like to welcome back to the stage the President and General Counsel and my legal hero, Thomas Saenz.
So if it's like the Oscars, this is going to go long. You know, y'all got that, right? So but Gina, nobody's going to start the band up to off the stage. So this is traditionally the time that I get to sum up, which this evening is extraordinarily difficult. But I will say that this has been truly an extraordinary evening. I hope you all feel that. And I want you to understand that each of you has contributed to that. This is obviously a dinner of die-hard MALDEF supporters. The pandemic has caused some, even as recently as this week, to cancel, to decide not to come. And that's the ongoing impact of what we are all experiencing. The lightest of impacts, because we know within our own families and communities, so many have paid a much, much higher price. And so many children, grandchildren, will pay a high price in the future, unless our country ensures that we address the trauma that has been differentially experienced in our country. But tonight, we salute the diehards who are here, and thank you so much for your ongoing commitment and support. Of course, I have thanks to deliver to so many, but let me start with the gentleman to my right who Several people have said that I'm wearing a tuxedo. I'm not, I'm just wearing a bow tie. This guy always outclasses me, not just by wearing the tuxedo, but because of the deep knowledge, the deep commitment that he brings to his role as our Master of Ceremonies. It's really extraordinary that he brings his whole heart to this. So thank you, Raul Reyes, once more for helping us out. In this room, there are current and former MALDEF board members. And the board is, in so many ways, the continuity of our organization. Without board members who are committed to our mission, committed to our support, committed to the broader goals of civil rights writ large, we would not have made it to 54 years. We will not make it, as I know we will, to 100 years. So let me thank now all of our current and former board members. Obviously, this is an important fundraiser for us. So I also want to thank members of our dinner committee and all of the sponsors who have stepped forward to support us, even when I know they face resistance within their own organizations. They face resistance within their broader circles because of MALDEF's controversy. So this is a heartfelt thanks and understanding of what it takes for you to be our supporters. To all of our financial supporters, thank you very much. Putting together an evening like this is not easy, so let me thank Gina Montoya, Amy Borrayo, Jose Delgado, Sandra Hernandez, Julie Gallego, for all that they've contributed to creating this memorable evening. And of course, you heard earlier from our really, really impressive Washington, D.C. Regional Counsel, Andrea Centino. And as wonderful as she is, she has colleagues across the country who are as dedicated, as articulate, as committed, and as sacrificing as she is, and all of the folks that she mentioned in the DC office. So let me ask all of the staff of MALDEF who are here tonight, current and former, for your commitment to the work that we do. So there are some former MALDEF honorees in the room tonight, and they were terrific. So I don't want them to take any umbrage at what I'm about to say. But wow, tonight's honorees, huh? Y'all know I'm from Los Angeles. There's a heat wave. We're over 100 degrees again today. So it was so nice to come into a room of a high level of cool created by our honorees. I mean, the cool quotient was... But beyond that, just the breadth of the contributions of these three honorees. Congresswoman Roybal Allard in Congress for 30 years, but before that, as a community leader, true community leader in Los Angeles. Juan Cartagena, not just a civil rights lawyer, but as you may have noticed in the film, a union organizer, and now a professor of undergraduates, graduates, and law students. And of course, Maria Hinojosa, who at the young age of 30 has been such a pioneer. I saw the description, I mean, not just in media, but more broadly as an entrepreneur and a leader, which is not always what you get in media. Raul is one of them as well, but You don't always get in media someone who is out there identifying issues, bringing them attention that they would not otherwise get. That's not the easy get. These are the tough gets. These are the going out into communities, sometimes undeveloped communities in this country and outside, to bring to light the issues that would otherwise never be seen. That's why that investigative team has so much promise. So the breadth of what these honorees have done is extraordinary. So let me one more time thank you for allowing us to recognize you. The committed and tenacious Lucille Roybal Allard, the creative and strategic Maria Hinojosa, and the incomparable and pioneering Juan Cartagena. Thank you all again. The Congresswoman pointed out that I've been doing this job now for 13 years. And that causes you to reflect. And as I have been reflecting of late, I have thought about what should and would fairness, equality, and equity mean for Latinos in our country. And a conundrum has presented itself. And that is, would it be the kind of equitable world we want if in the future we had progressive public policy on all the issues of concern to us, but our Latino representation in positions of leadership was at the level that it is today? Is that a fair and equitable world for the Latino community? Policy without representation. The reason, of course, that is the conundrum on which I have been reflecting is that we face that crisis today. And if we fail to begin to address it today, that is the future that we may face. To put it in more modern terms, this is the universe in the metaverse, or whatever it is, that we could end up in, where public policy serves our interests, but it is not derived or implemented by us. As you all know, the 2020 census said that Latinos are 19% of our population, and we are growing. The Census Bureau pointed out that between 2010 and 2020, we were over 51% of the total growth of this country. Put differently, they also said Latinos in that decade, that most recent decade, grew at a rate of 23+%. All non-Latinos, all other non-Latinos of every other racial group only grew at 4.3%. Think about it. That's over 5 times the growth rate of the rest of the country. So it's not crazy to assume in the next 10 or dozen years that we will be 30%, close to a third of the population. Would it be okay if we were 30% of the population, but only 10% of leads in film, television, and online? Would it be okay if we were 30% of the population, but only 8% of the most important judges in the country? Would it be okay if we were 30% of the population, but only 5% of corporate board members of all of the publicly traded corporations in the country? Would it be okay if we were 30% of the population, but only 15% of Congress? Would it be okay if we were 30% of the population, but only 20% of students in universities across the country. That's not an unreal prospect for our community today. Because today we face levels of underrepresentation in all of those arenas and more that are even more pronounced than what I've just hypothesized. I'm from California, as I mentioned previously. We just achieved something extraordinary with the appointment of the first Latina Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. That is something worth celebrating. But at the same time, her position as an associate justice was filled by a non-Latino, meaning that she is still only one of 7 members of the California Supreme Court. That is despite the fact that Latinos have, for the last 8 years, been the largest racial group in California's population. 8 years ago, we surpassed whites. So we are the largest. We have never had more than one Supreme Court justice at a time. However, the now smaller white population, as you all know, has through most of the state's history had 7 members of the California Supreme Court. The smaller Asian American community has very recently had 4 members of the California Supreme Court at one time. The Black community, even smaller in California's population, as a result of the appointment of the Associate Justice to succeed the new Chief Justice. The Black community now has 3 justices on the 7-member California Supreme Court. With this most recent appointment, there are now 2 openly gay justices on the Supreme Court. And yet, Latinos, the largest, have never had more than 1 justice at a time on the California Supreme Court. Was that a vision of fairness and equity in our country? Let's speak more broadly. And I've spoken out, sometimes perhaps more vociferously than some would like, about this issue. You heard Andrea talk about the precedent-setting appointment of Brad Garcia to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, the 2nd most important federal court in the country. A tremendous achievement. But under this administration, which has, with justice, been identified as appointing a diverse and more representative group of judges across the country. Under this administration, in our circuit courts of appeals, not just DC, but across the country, the 2nd highest level of courts under the Supreme Court, this administration has nominated 15 Black judges to our circuit courts of appeals across the country. Extraordinary. I believe we're now at 11 white judges appointed to those circuit courts across the country. There have been 6 Asian Americans appointed to our circuit courts across the country. And there have been 5 Latino or Latina judges appointed to circuit courts across the country by this administration. By the way, of those 5, only 1 has been a Latina woman. Why are we in 4th when it has been now 20 years since Latinos became the largest racial minority group in the country? 20 years. In 2003, March of 2003, the Census Bureau recognized that sometime in 2002, Latinos surpassed Blacks to be the largest minority group in the country. And yet 20 years later, when it comes to the highest tier below the Supreme Court of Judges, we are in 4th with this progressive administration. Is that is that a world of justice and fairness to Latinos? Particularly as we slowly emerge from a pandemic where the data tells us our community has suffered more than any other in this country. Why? Not because of some deficit in our genetic composition, but because so many members of our community are represented on the front lines doing the work to make America go, and doing it when others were working from home. That is why we have the highest death rate, I believe in that case matched by Native Americans, the highest infection rate. Is it justice for us to have that gap in representation in the immediate aftermath of that experience for the nation as a whole? As I think about what MALDEF has done historically, I know that that cannot be justice, because representation matters, and here's why. Yes, throughout our history, MALDEF has focused on issues that were top of headlines, top of mind, top of awareness. Congresswoman mentioned Proposition 187. We knew we were going to have to challenge Proposition 187 from the very first day it was proposed, from the very first day it was in the headlines, from the very first day that Pete Wilson's support for the initiative was in the headlines. So yes, we have done work on some of the most prominent issues in the country. But we have also done our work by identifying the hidden, the obscure injustices faced by Latinos in this country. Andrea also mentioned the work we did on behalf of 2 transgender immigrant detainees held in a privately run prison and treated abysmally in solitary confinement. This office and others around the country have done work to ensure that banks and credit unions can no longer discriminate against immigrants who hold DACA because they are not citizens or lawful permanent residents. But the point here is that was an obscure issue. If you had asked anyone before we took on those cases, they would say, oh, well, of course, banks would do that. They're probably federally required to do it. Some bankers would have said that. And my last example is this. Raul talked about our appropriately celebrated victory in Plyler versus Doe. But I assure you, in 1979, when that case was commenced in Texas to challenge a state law that allowed school districts to deny enrollment or charge tuition to undocumented immigrants, that it was an obscure and hidden issue. And it was by no means an issue that MALDEF knew it would win. They undertook the issue with trepidation, understanding that the likelihood was that they would lose on what was, at the time, an obscure and hidden issue. But my point is, the obscure and hidden issues will only come to light through the work of folks like Maria Hinojosa and Futuro Media, but they can only be solved if we also have people in positions of authority inside and outside the government, on the bench, in Congress, to appreciate the horrific damage that has been done historically and continues to be done through the hidden and the obscure injustices that don't reach the mainstream headlines. We only get there to justice that rolls down throughout the entire nation, to every strata of our society. We only get there if we get Latino representation that is commensurate with our community's prominence in this country. So the only solution to the conundrum is that we cannot accept a future, a universe, where we have all the policies that we desire without the representation necessary to implement and to fulfill the promise that those policies embody. And I'm not suggesting we're there with policies, but I am telling you and committing to you that I and my committed colleagues at MALDEF, with all of your help, will continue to work to ensure that not only the policies get there, but that representation gets there as well. We look forward to working with you on that challenge.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas. The Latino community is so grateful to have you at the helm of MALDEF. And I want to thank everyone in this room. You are, just by being here, you are part of the MALDEF family. And I would like, before we go, just to give a round of applause for our servers tonight, our hotel staff, and also these gentlemen in the back who have kept our whole show going. So let's please join me in congratulating all of our honorees and sponsors. Thank you for having me, allowing me to serve as your host on this very special night. Like I said, MALDEF has always meant a lot to me and my family. And so I so appreciate being here. And we'll see you next year. Gracias.